Game 3, winner take all of the wild card series between the Yankees and the Red Sox. If I would have said to you before the season started, Yankees, Red Sox, winner take all. Before the season started, you said, well, you know what, I could maybe see that. But who had on their bingo card Schlittler versus early? Gets early, whatever that yogiism, gets late early, whatever that was. So first, let's welcome in Billy Martin Jr. Billy, how we doing tonight?
Doing great. I've 2-0 so far in these playoff games tonight. I wish I was betting on them, but I think this is going to be a fun game. Can you imagine being a rookie in the Yankees Red Sox first round of the playoffs? I mean, how do you think Early's going to feel when Aaron Judge steps up to the plate for the first time in that first inning? I'm going to guess he's going to be a little puckered up tonight.
I agree. That's
Or pitch walk.
that's a good way of putting it. We're going to go down to Arkansas, and we're going to welcome in TJ, who played college ball at Arkansas State. He looks at the game many times through the eyes of a catcher, and we just love that, embrace that. That's a pretty good place to start, TJ. Welcome to the show, and so much around Ben Rice, Austin Wells, the construction of the lineup. Well, guess what? Wells is in the lineup tonight, and so is Ben Rice. So Ben Rice is at first base. TJ, your thoughts on the construction of the lineup tonight, and how are we feeling?
I feel pretty good about it. I know we've talked before in the past, Billy and Mike, about Volpe. Billy said he wanted Volpe, and Volpe has performed. I was saying all along, I think Schlittler is going to be something, and I'm hoping that pans out tonight. Now, going into the lineup, I like the lineup, especially down there to 6, 7, and 8. We've got some wheels. If we can get on base, maybe we can make something happen. With Rosario, Chisholm, and Volpe. Chisholm's wheels last night on that first to home was incredible. That was just magnificent. I like the front end of the lineup as well, and then the middle having Rice he's in the 6th slot. I think having him down there in the middle, he's going to help produce. So I'm pleased with it.
Wow. You brought up a great point with that first to home. I mean, there's nothing more exhilarating than seeing someone race around the bases like that. Now, it was, there's so many little things like the game within the game just that led to that. Billy and I were talking on the phone as we were watching the game. And one thing as it developed, and just want to back up a little bit. You gave Billy props and kudos for his comments on Volpe very correctly. And I say the same, Billy, kudos for that. Also want to give kudos to something for Billy. We did a pregame before game 1. And, I was, TJ, I was a little concerned about stuffing those righty bats into the lineup at the sake of the defense. And I said, Cabby at third, with Max Fried on the mound, there's a lot of balls hit the third. And I was also, concerned for sure with Rosario at second, but Billy had a different take on it. And he said, I'm not only concerned about it defensively, I'm concerned about the team chemistry. Before it happened, he said, I don't think that Jazz Chisholm is going to take that very well. He considers himself a starter. He considers himself not a platoon player. He went 30-30 on the season. And he said, that's what I'm concerned about. And I was kind of like, yeah, I see where you're going with that. But I really want, he was spot on, because that was one of the most bizarre post-game interviews. He had his back to the reporters, etc. So giving Billy kudos for that and using that as a backdrop. Now what happens is, as we go into last night's game, we see his first couple of at-bats. He's trying to do too much. We're saying to each other, where's the 70% Jazz that he jokes about, right? But we have to give Jazz credit, because 2 outs, he draws a walk, a well-earned walk. He's on first, and then with a 3-2 count, he gets that secondary lead. He's on, he's in motion, and he scores literally on a single. And man, if that stadium was rocking after that play, and we had the lead, Billy, again, you nailed it.
Well, haven't played the game a little bit. I know how I'd have felt. I know how anybody would have felt that's used to being an everyday starter. That's not a platoon guy. All of a sudden, you're platooned in game one of the playoffs. That's going to fly all over a guy like that. And why wasn't that talked about significantly beforehand with them? I didn't like it anyways. I'm sorry. This is the postseason. It's time to think outside the box. Cora's doing it right. Look what he did. Look how he extended Crochet in that game. That guy pitched more innings more pitches than he's ever thrown in a game in his life. He wasn't even a college starting pitcher. His last pitch was the hardest one he threw at 102, and he was amazing. But we all know the Yankees still could have very easily won that game. And you've got your guys. You go to war with them in the postseason. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. TJ, before we throw it back to you, please allow me to give both starting lineups. We'll start with the Red Sox. In left field, Duran. And how did he drop that ball last night? We could talk about that in a little bit. Story at shortstop, Bregman at third base, Yoshida, DH, Rafaela. In center field, we could talk about that bunt last night. Also, that, in my opinion, was a turning point of the game. Lowe at first base, Nieves behind the plate, ex-Yankee, and Abreu in left. For the Yankees, Grisham, we have in center field, Judge in right field, Bellinger in left, Stanton to DH, Rice at first base, just as we were talking about. Now, rolling the dice a little bit defensively, but they have Rosario at third base. We think we might understand that a little bit. It's not Fried on the mound tonight, so they're hoping that not as many balls unnecessarily hit the third base. Chisholm, we've talked already about him. We got Volpe and then Wells behind the plate. TJ.
I misspoke. I put Rice at 6. He was 5th. And my mistake there. As far as tonight's ball game, we've got to come through. The runners in scoring position and the left on base. Left on base. That's just too much. And it's the little things. I've said this all year. The little things that add up. We can't live and die with a home run, which we did Monday. Last night was a little bit different, and we were able to win the ball game. Our big guns, they got to do something. And I know Judgy, he's been clutch, getting base hits. We just need our big guys to step up and do something. I thought, like you pointed out about Cora Monday, I thought he definitely was the one that pulled all the right strings. He left Crochet in, and we didn't pull our ace. The guy we paid all this money for. And he's been a horse. The guy should have won 20 ball games, but that's another point. Anyways, I think last night, though, in regard to the ball game, I think Cora jumped the gun going with his bullpen, every few innings rather than letting that his starter Bella start out and go for a little bit. And I'm hoping that with the fact that he used all those relief pitchers, I hope that comes back and haunts them tonight. Unless they got Chapman, but hopefully we'll be in a good position and we don't have to worry about that.
Great point. So before we turn it back to Billy, and Billy, you could comment on what TJ just said. So let me just expand on what TJ just said. It seemed to us that Cora was playing, pushing his chips in the middle of the table. He was going all in on last night's game and just trying to avoid tonight at all risks. So to TJ's point, he pulled Bayo early, and Whitlock threw 47 pitches last night. Another righty out of the pen, Slayton. They have Kelly. Weissert we didn't see. But from the left side, they have Chapman. We saw Justin Wilson last night, and we saw Steven Matz. So we have Goldie on the bench. We have Goldschmidt on the bench. Billy, you probably would have preferred to see him in the starting lineup, but we do have him as a weapon coming off the bench with some of these lefties coming out of the bullpen, at some point.
Yeah. And as much as I love Rice, I think he's not going to get too beat up had he maybe started on the bench. And you can play him, you can put him anywhere 3 spots. So I don't see early lasting long. I think he's going to have an early exit. I think there's just going to be so much pressure on that guy that I could obviously be shocked, but I'd love to know what's going on in these meetings, with the Yankees right now, because I heard that, Goldschmidt was going to be in there against lefties. He's not in there. There are so many things going on. What happened yesterday, before the game? Were the analytics guys saying they should bench Aaron Judge because he's 1 for 24 against Bello and 0 for his last 18 against him? Think about that. Think if they'd have done that. Talk about team chemistry. What would happen to this team? And that's why I bring that up, just to add some hot sauce to a Jazz. That puts it in perspective when you look at it from that angle, a guy that's used to being your everyday guy. But I wonder if some of them thought about that. Maybe we should sit Judge today till Bello comes out. And what did Judge do? Go out there and get 2 hits. So it's the playoffs. You're right. Cora overplayed his hand. And 7 pitches at the very end of that. When was the last time he threw that many pitches? I doubt it happened very often. And I get it. And the reason he overplayed his hand was because what's he got left to start? I mean, 9-6, the Yankees are going to win. This game will be over in the 5th inning, and we'll have something to talk about next week.
There you go. Sounds good to me. What I would say is Billy, as usual, says so much, that, I should be writing stuff down as he's going, because I'll forget as he's going along. But there were a couple of things in there, TJ, before I throw it back to you. One of the things he alluded to was that Aaron Boone promised Goldschmidt that he would start against left-handed pitching. Early's a left-handed pitcher. So he went back on that. What does that do to a former MVP? What does that do to, a player that is been a starter the entire year? That's one thing. Before I turn it back, TJ, let me just paint a picture for our viewers and just give a thumbnail sketch of the Yankee bullpen and what we've seen so far. Lefties, it's Tim Hill. But we haven't, seen we threw 4 pitches, so that's it. We haven't seen Duvall. We haven't seen Mark Leiter Jr. We haven't seen Blackburn. I'm not so sure why he's even, on the roster. I mean, I guess Heel, for whatever reason, they didn't want to put him on the roster, but that was like a head scratcher for me. Luke Weaver was not a good performance when we did see him in Game 1. Fernando Cruz, I want to talk about that. That was one that Billy and I were watching unfold last night. Bednar, again, I'm a big fan of his. Devin Williams, you know what? He's been better. Jumping back to Cruz before I turn it over to TJ, Billy and I were watching the game and communicating, talking on our cell phones. And when, you wonder if a manager is overcompensating. TJ, you mentioned you were not happy with Boone with taking out Fried too early with 102 pitches. You were not alone. You got a lot of criticism. Now, last night, it looked in the seventh inning, he allowed two base runners before he lifts Rodon, where a wild pitch and hitting a batter and all of that. It almost felt like he might have left him in too early, but that's not my point with this. In my opinion, first and second, nobody out. You are really rolling the dice to bring in Fernando Cruz, because I'm telling Billy in real time, I'm saying this guy's got an unhittable splitter that is kind of like a changeup or a knuckleball. TJ, you were a catcher. It acts almost like a knuckleball. It's got very little, spin to it, and it's just all over the place. Now, it's unhittable, but he also lacks control. Now, you're bringing him in with first and second, nobody out. I don't like that. You know what I mean? I'd rather bring him in a clean inning. I think I would have gone with maybe I'm thinking more like Mark Leiter Jr. because of he's got more control. But getting back to Rafaela, that bunt with nobody out. First pitch was a splitter. It was a foot off the plate, and he made an attempt at it. The second pitch was a foot off the plate, a horrible bunt. He bunts it right up in the air, and Cruz makes the catch easily. That allowed us to get out of that inning, because there was a lot in that inning. There was that line drive hit up the middle by Yoshida that Jazz keeps it on the infield, and how the runner at second doesn't score, I don't even know. And Story puts a charge into one. I thought it was out to dead central, and it was caught. So, man, oh man, I hate to admit it, but I hate to feel this way, but I think Boone got flat out lucky in that inning that we walked away with that inning without them scoring. TJ, your thoughts?
I'm with you on that. That was something. And yes, Cruz does. He throws that pitch, and there's no telling where it's going to go. It was incredible that we were able to dodge that bullet. I was thinking maybe Doval, but and then Jazz did make that good play, and I'm thinking that runner here, gets in the dirt, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe that he wasn't running and scoring on that ball. And then again, like you said, that ball to center field that Story got into, I thought it was at least over Grisham's head, but thank God it wasn't, and that was the big turning point of the game for sure.
And you know what, Bill? We'll turn it over to Billy. But just as we reiterate, just think about what we talked about: a fly ball to left field to Duran, who's a great fielder. Now, we're very proud on this show. We point out things, and then when our viewers watch the show, I get a lot of text messages. Hey, Mike, I remember that you were talking about that. I remember Billy talking about that. That makes me feel so good. One of the things that we were talking about was, out of 30 teams, Boston is dead last in terms of errors. They've made more errors than any other team in the major leagues, and Story has 19 of them himself. However, their outfield is solid. Duran is solid. Rafaela is a difference maker defensively. How Duran didn't make that play is beyond me. That's one that was a huge thing, right? We talked about the bunt, and TJ, you just talked about how does the third base coach put the stop sign on that, the runner should have scored from second on, that play where we talked about where Jazz made the great play, but then, he throws it in the dirt and Rice doesn't field it cleanly. Those are three plays right there. And when you have, a playoff game where two teams where the margin of error is very minute, that sometimes makes the difference. Billy?
Well, I one thing that flew on me a little bit was when Cruz was done pitching, he acted like he just won the World Series. and he really didn't pitch very well. That could have gone really bad. And I realized because Mike told me that he grew up a Yankee fan hating the Red Sox. But it's one of the things I so admire about Aaron Judge is that he acts like he's been there before. He doesn't throw his bat up in the air and me stuff like half these guys do today. He he ducks his head
Great
and runs
point.
the bases. And I was literally on the phone with Danny Mantle, and he was talking about what's the deal with this Cruz guy. He didn't pitch that well. Why is he acting like that? Welcome to today's world of baseball. The Duran error, I was shocked. I mean, he's a star player. I think he's their best player. I think he is their best all-around player. I was kind of shocked that he was batting in the 7-hole yesterday, because I think they're the best team when he's in the leadoff. But that was clearly, I watched that over and over again. If you look, it's the first thing they said to you when you were a little boy, TJ. Watch the ball, son. Watch the ball. You look at his eyes. He is not looking at the baseball going into his glove. He's already looking up, seeing what's going on, and that's when most errors are made. It's also one of those things that coaches don't want to talk about, but vision tracking at the plate, watching the ball all the way to contact. I've got a picture of Giancarlo Stanton hitting a ball out of the stadium in the All-Star game 2 years ago, and shows two things. Shows that he's not watching the ball at contact, because the ball is wrapped around his bat and his eyes are already out in left field. Okay. It also shows they use juice balls in the playoffs. I mean, in the All-Star game, because I've never seen a ball wrapped around the bat quite like that one. But they've done video studies on this, and the average little leaguer takes his eye off the ball 5 feet from the pitcher's hand. The average major leaguer takes his eye off the ball 5 feet from contact. Now think about that. These guys are trying to watch the ball all the way to their bat. They still can't do it, because we're human. We're bored. We want to go to Instagram. We want to do something else. We know what the ball looks like. Our brain is wanting to move somewhere else. And it's one of the hardest things for a hitter to do. If you guys remember, Derek Jeter would always overlook a ground ball into his glove in rollouts. As the pitcher's warming up at the beginning of the inning, first baseman's throwing balls to all the infielders. He would watch it all the way into his glove until he had it in his hand before he would look up, okay? And he would stare at it and do that. I asked him at an All-Star game. I had a client in the All-Star game with Derek, and I'd known Derek since he was in A-ball. My very first client was his roommate in A-ball. And I said, Derek, you've been in the big leagues for a long time now. Why do you still overstare that ball into your glove at rollouts? And he said, oh, you noticed that, did you? I said, yeah. He said, because if I don't, I'll start leaving the ball 2 feet before my glove, and then 5 feet before my glove, and then 10 feet before my glove. Then I start making errors, and even worse, I bring that to the plate, and then I really have a problem. I've got to watch it all the way into my glove to make him stay locked on there all the time. And I think that's why he was so good in the postseason, because he beat into himself how important focus was. I think that's why my father was a way better World Series player than he was a regular player, because most baseball players are attention deficit, right? Well, those are two guys that learned how to really channel their focus in the big moments. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's great insight. And we thank you for that, Billy, because TJ, I mean, you're watching, and again, Duran is a terrific fielder, and, it's just, it's almost inexplicable. And boy, it almost was in the same category. It was a little reminiscent of last year's World Series, where Judge, maybe momentarily took his eye off the ball in center field, and, et cetera. TJ.
I'm with Bill. You got to watch the ball. That's one of the biggest things you learn in any sport, is you keep your eye on the ball. I was shocked that Duran dropped that ball. I didn't see that coming at all. And obviously, we were happy. I didn't care if it was a hit or an error, whatever they want to call it. It's a run. But I was definitely surprised that he dropped that ball because he is a very good defensive player. And I think he probably is one of the best players on that team. He's the guy I fear coming up to the plate in a big situation.
Gentlemen, I just want to share this one and get your thoughts. Two perfect people to be speaking to. Last night, before the game, Billy and I did a little pregame, and when I talked about Carlos Rodon, I said that I feel optimistic that he's finally learned and owns. I said there's a difference between knowing something and really owning it. And I think we're beyond the Rodon that was strictly fastball slider, hard, harder, hardest. I think we're beyond that. And I think he's at the point with his changeup that I think he's not going to be just a two pitch, the scenario that we saw his first year where it was, just, a disaster. Now, going into it, I said to our viewers, I said, we're going to look for the changeup because I think he's very comfortable with that and been very effective. I also mentioned look for the sinker, okay, because that two-seamer has arm side run that goes the opposite direction of his devastated slider, which is glove side. I said, look for that. So I just want to, read the breakdown from last night. He threw 91 pitches, 34 fastballs, 34 four-seamers, 24 sliders, okay, 23 changeups, excellent, and 10 sinkers. Now, the thing about the sinkers was, now if you take the 23 and the 10 and you add those, the changeup and sinkers, that is beautiful. That's 33. That's more than a third of his pitches were changeup and, two pitches that he did not have in his arsenal. That is beautiful. The other thing that I found very interesting is he didn't throw the sinker until as the game went along. So he was committed to the changeup, and then he sprinkled the sinker in. Now, it was, he struggled a little bit. Let's be honest. He had a 2-run lead. He squandered that. He gave up 3 runs, but he didn't implode, gentlemen. He didn't implode. He kept us in the game, and that's what we needed from him. So could he have been better? Can he have been like freed and pitched the shutout? Yeah, but you want to know something? I was very happy with that. I was very happy with it because I felt, for the reasons why I just said, the pitch mix with all that adrenaline, and I thought that was growth on his part, and I'm excited for that. So I'm looking forward. Like Billy, I feel the Yankees will win tonight. I hope we do. And basically, I feel good about what I saw from Rodon. Not just results, but just sticking with the process. And I feel that he owns that. TJ, your thoughts specifically to that?
I thought he really maintained his composure overall very, very well. Because, like you said, we see him, he has a bump in the road, and the next thing you know, he gives up a 3-run bomb. I thought he was very, very well composed with, obviously, with mixing up his speeds and his locations. And the key is to keep us in the ball game, like you said, Mike. You keep us in the game. You give us a chance to win. Hopefully, we'll score more runs, and we don't necessarily have to rely on the bullpen like we've had to use it done in the past. But he has done very, very well. And I know I've been a critic of the guy, but he's done very well. We did a great job last night.
You were right to be a critic of him in the past, and honestly speaking, I was a critic of him. His first year, I was so frustrated. I didn't even really, I was beside myself. If this is going to be another one of those contracts, I was beside myself because I agree with you, TJ. When we got him, I'm saying to myself, if this guy thinks that he's going to get away with in the American League East with Toronto and Boston to be all that hard stuff, it's not going to work. Okay. And you know what happened? And again, you have to give some, criticism to to not only him, but the Yankee, coaching staff, etc., because they allowed him to do that. Even as recently as the World Series last year, he got hit hard against the Dodgers. And then I see him being interviewed by Jack Curry in the springtime. And you know what he said? I wish I would have thrown my off speed more. You wish? Well, it's too late now. Okay, we're not, we'll never get that World Series back. Okay, you look what happened. Nobody was expecting Cole to go down with Tommy John. You don't get those opportunities back. Yeah, you wish. Okay, so I'm with you with TJ. But again, we feel good about what we saw last night because he did throw the changeup and he did throw the two seamers. So all of that. With that said, before I throw it back to Billy, what I want to say is I talked about Fried the first night, and I mentioned same thing with him, curveball, and in his case, the changeup has been coming along very, very nicely, and you saw him do it. Yeah, he threw 96, 97, but he mixed his pitches, he mixed his velocity, and he was brilliant. One thing that I warned our viewers with, I said a little bit of the pinpoint control is not there with Max Fried. And I told our viewers to look at one thing specifically. I said a lot of his wildness is arm side. And what I mean by that is if it's a righty batter, a lot of his pitches are ending up in the left-handed batter's box, like so to speak. So that's where he's got more control glove side, and we saw that even again in his outing, as great as he was. We saw him throw a ball to the backstop, and then he looks at his fingertips and he's rubbing. The ball kind of slips a little bit. Maybe he's not following through, but terrific. We couldn't ask for more from him. And now here's what we have. We have Fried mixed his pitches beautifully. We had Rodon. We just talked about it. He did it too. Now I want to talk just briefly about Cam Schlittler. When he exploded on the scene, he throws. There's no secret to his success. The guy throws triple digits. The guy throws 100 miles an hour. We know that. Now, and I want to get both of you guys' opinion on the next thing that I'm going to point out. He has what they call a cutter. Now, sometimes the cutter goes east and west. It's like a Mariano. It's cutting across. But sometimes they still call it a cutter, and it's got this downward bite, almost like a slider, like Jabba Chamberlain circa, what he like this kind of, it's almost like two different pitches, and I wonder why they call them both cutter. But I'm putting that off to a side. Those are his calling cards. Fastball, and we're going to call it a cutter, and one of them goes east and west, and one of it goes down, okay, which is great. Now, the other thing is the curveball, and he's been throwing his curveball more. I believe that Max Fried has helped him with it, and it is nice. It's a 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and it's got low velocity in the low 80s, and that gives you that real velocity separation. That's what I want to see tonight. Throw a fair amount of those because Boston will be hunting dead red. Write it down. Here's one thing I want to get your guys' thoughts on. I was at the stadium on September 5th. September 5th was when Schlittler pitched against the Toronto Blue Jays. He didn't get out of the second inning, if you remember. And they were fouling off pitches and fouling off pitches and fouling off pitches. And I'm at the game, right? And here's what I want to share with you guys. Okay, he struck out Springer on a curveball to start the game, and then he got Vlad. As we go along, the thing is that Bo Bichette got a broken bat double down the left field line on a curveball, and I don't know if that was the reason why he went away from it. But here was his pitch sequence for the rest of the first inning. I'm just going to give you velocity if you're ready for this. 99, 99, 99, 99, 98, 98, 99, 99, 100, 98, 100, 99, 99, 94, 94, 95, 99, and 99. And that's where Michael Kay and everybody else, they're saying, you're giving Toronto kudos, and I give them kudos too, that they were on his pitches and fouling them back. My question is, where was that 84-mile-an-hour curveball that they would have been way out in front of. And and I'm kind of, very unhappy with that. And in what really I did not like, we had a Matt Blake mound visit in the middle of all of that. So that's the thing. So what I'm trying to say is, ladies and gentlemen, like, I'll look into the camera to our viewers. What I want to see is just what you saw with Fried and just what you saw with Rodon. And I admit it's not easy when the adrenaline is just like up to here. And he's a young kid, but I think he could do it. He does not look, Billy talked about it and TJ talked about it. He does look to me like he's in control. He looks like he's got the, the ice water in his veins. At least I hope he does. I want to see the fastball. I want to see the two different cutters. I want to see the curveball. And if he wants to throw the sinker too, that's great. Billy, we'll start with you, and then TJ, please give me your thoughts as a catcher.
I'll tell you, I really think we have watched him mature, like you said, and I gotta feel he's going to be a lot more comfortable than the guy he's going up against. Cora knows what he's up against tonight. That's why he threw everything at it last night like he did. And I think we're going to see a lot of craziness tonight. I wouldn't be a bit shocked to see him try to double steal and hit and runs and all kinds of ways to manufacture runs because his back's to the wall. Who knows what they have in that bullpen? And Schlittler has shown he can do it in big games now. Imagine being a Red Sox walking into this situation, being that kid. Like I said earlier, trying to be punny. I expect an early exit for their starting pitcher, and it's going to be 9-3 Yankees.
Oh, there's a hot take. I love it. I love it. I'll give my prediction at the end. TJ, your thoughts?
I'm counting on Cam, fellas. As Billy mentioned, he has matured. We watched this kid come along. He'd had a few rough outings. He had some good outings. The last few, he's been really, really good. He's got to command that fastball. Like you said, mix in those off-speed pitches a little bit more. Keep those guys off balance. Don't let them get comfortable. I'm thinking we're going to be all right with this kid as long as we can score some runs. I'll go 6-4 Yanks.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. I'll go 7-4 Yankees. I feel confident we all do. And TJ, as a catcher, I think they definitely made the right decision to keep Wells behind the plate. We have to give him credit. I always liked him. I'm always kind of like not understanding of why some Yankee fans kind of bash him. He goes into sometimes prolonged kind of droughts with the bat, but it's a tough position, and he gets beat up back there. And I'm glad, for one, that he's behind the plate tonight, because just as you said, I think Billy said, just all the tricks up their sleeve. There might be stealing, double stealing. TJ, maybe you said it. And basically, I feel more comfortable with Wells behind the plate with that, and framing. For now, we have to live with framing. Maybe next year it will be less of a import, but I'm glad with that. I'm glad they got Rice into the lineup, but I'm glad we have Wells behind the plate. TJ,
absolutely, I'm in agreement with that as well. I think he does a fine job behind the dish, and obviously he came through last night, so I think he's got a little confidence going into tonight's ball game.
Gentlemen, and both, it is interesting, and we could, there's so many things we could kind of wrap up with, but one of the things is. We have a lefty on the mound. We have Giancarlo Stanton. Okay, so small sample size, but we built this larger than life reputation for being a postseason monster, and he's 0 for 8 so far in this postseason. So with a lefty on the mound, Billy, and someone a rookie that hasn't even pitched on the road in a meaningful game. With that being said, with Giancarlo Stanton and Judge in the middle of the lineup, your expectations versus a left-handed starter?
Oh, I think they're going to be fine. I mean, is this kid going to be himself early? And we'll know the same with Cam. It'll be those first 2 innings where he's going to get in trouble or not, you know. And we'll know when we see, who we're going to see come in if he gets in trouble. We'll see he'll come in, right? He'll be getting warm, and that's when we'll know. But who's Boston's next guy in line? I don't know, but these guys are seasoned veterans, man. They're going to be fine against this guy, and I'll be shocked if he makes it to the 5th inning. I really will.
Yeah, I agree.
But
But we'll
I've
turn it
been
over.
shocked plenty of times.
No, I agree with you, and we'll turn it over to TJ for that specific question. But like we're saying, Judge, I mean Giancarlo, I mean we got Rosario in the lineup, so we're taking a little bit of a step back defensively. But that guy can hit; he could wear out lefty pitching. Rosario, TJ.
I think it's going to be key that we get this guy early and get into their bullpen again because we don't, like Billy said, we don't know what they've got. I think it's going to be. I'd be intimidated if I was this kid early coming out there to pitch in Yankee Stadium in a must game with your team on the line. His first big outing. It's got to be intimidating. But I'm just hoping for the best tonight, fellas.
There you go. You know what? Just because on this show we like to always, you know, circle back to the human element. I want to just ask both of you gentlemen a question, especially Billy on this one. His dad was a legendary manager, especially for the Yankees, and he will be beloved forever. I think it's fascinating, Billy. You called it before it happened with Jazz Chisholm. Now I want to ask you a different question. There's two ways of looking at it. Okay, he didn't start. He felt betrayed to a degree because I'm a starter, right? Okay, and everything like that. But after the game, TJ and Billy, after the game, he turns his back on the press, not speaking to them, and sends a clear message. Okay, and my question is, you could look at this two ways. One is that he's not a team player, or he should not have acted that way, and he shouldn't have acted that way. The other thing is he's so emotional, but he loves the pinstripes, and that's one thing, Billy. I think your dad loved the pinstripes, okay, and he always said it, and he never wavered. Is it possible that Jazz loves the pinstripes so much, loves everything about the team, that his emotions we have to accept? The bad with with a lot of good.
I mean, obviously, you have to get over it in anything like this because you got to go play. Um, but I understand those feelings. I get it. I've seen it so many times over the years, and that's one of those things that analytics guys are never going to understand. You don't get good at this game. You don't become the upper echelon of it by being okay with sitting on the bench. I mean, you're just never going to dig that. And guys that platoon all year, okay, they're used to it. That's part of it. They get there. Do they like it? Do they want it? Probably not. Got a couple beers in them, they probably tell you they wish they were playing every day, but they'll deal with it. But you just don't do that in game one of the playoffs. You don't do that, especially with a guy like you're talking about that we know wears it, where everybody can see it. I mean, we won't see it tonight with Goldschmidt. he's a seasoned veteran that's been around a long time. But when he does get his at bat, like you were saying about Jazz, he might try to overdo a little bit himself for that same reason, because these guys are proud. They're good at playing second fiddle.
Well said. And you know what, gentlemen, as we wait for the game to start, and it's going to start any minute, so we're going to wrap things up. But we'd just like to say, just to paint a broader picture, the Detroit Tigers did defeat the Cleveland Guardians, and they punched their ticket to the next round. They will be playing the Seattle Mariners. Yankees are looking to punch their ticket, play Toronto next. And we hope for the best tonight. The Dodgers have already punched their ticket, beating the Cincinnati Reds, who stunned Major League Baseball by beating out, the Mets. Stunned, maybe not so much, but, surprised to a degree. But the Dodgers advance. They'll play the Philadelphia Phillies. And waiting for the game to go final. It hasn't yet, but the Cubs are on the precipice of moving forward. It's in the ninth inning. They have a 3-1 lead the last time I checked over the San Diego Padres, and they would play the Milwaukee Brewers. So for all of us that love baseball so much, there's just a lot of fun ahead and enjoyment ahead, and it'll be that much sweeter if the Yankees will prevail tonight. And we all think they will. We're rooting for it. And we'll all be enjoying the game. And ladies and gentlemen, hopefully, from our conversations tonight, as the game goes on, I remember what those guys were mentioning, et cetera. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. Enjoy the game. And TJ, thank you for joining us. We'll see you very soon. And Billy, see you on the next episode.